How's it going, friends? Welcome back to another Fallout 76 build guide, and today we're going to be covering a beginner's auto-axe build. In the video we're going to be showing perk cards, where and how to get some of the items I'll be using today. This build will also be in PA, and there will be timestamps below, as well as the build from the Nuke Dragon's website in the description. But with that, let's get right to it. So with the perk cards, you guys can pause the video if you'd like, but for strength we are going to be running all 15 points in strength, using Traveling Pharmacy, Level 2 Slugger, Level 2 Expert Slugger, Level 2 Master Slugger, Level 3 Blocker, and Level 3 Incisor. Now if you want to increase your damage a little bit further, you can remove Blocker and upgrade those Slugger perk cards to Level 3, but I find that using Blocker will have a nice layer of defense because melee damage seems to be quite strong even if you are a full health build. But moving on to Perception, we have Butcher's Bounty and Green Thumb. I like using these perk cards because it doubles the yield for not only the meat that we find on enemies that we kill, but also the fruits and veggies that we pick up in the world. I do like to use a lot of buffs, and buffs for melees, especially the auto axe, can prove to be very strong and very helpful. So having these will at least reduce the pain and suffering of trying to get those food buffs, or at least stock up on them. For Endurance, we are going to be taking advantage of the new Endurance perk cards, or the revamped perk cards, which are Iron Stomach, Natural Resistance, Thirst Quencher, as well as Vaccinated. Now how these perk cards work is for each point of Endurance will increase the benefits of what those perk cards give. Now the catch for these perk cards is that you cannot be diseased. Now if you're diseased, you will no longer get any benefits from those perk cards, so Vaccinated will be very handy just in case you do not have a lot of antibiotics. Disease cures, use the White Springs Fountain, or I believe the Symptomatic Machine to remove your diseases. But let's quickly go over the other perk cards real fast. First up we have our Thirst Quencher perk card, which will increase our max AP, Iron Stomach, which will increase our damage resistance, and Natural Resistance, which will increase our non-physical resistances, so Cryo, Poison, Fire, as well as Energy Resistance. Now moving on to the other Endurance perk cards, we have Chem Fiend, which will allow us to get double benefits from our chems. Solar Powered, which will give us extra strength. Strength is always good because strength increases your melee damage as well as carry weight. Now this perk card activates and lasts from 6 AM to 6 PM, which you can check under your data tab in your Pip-Boy. And for the final two, we have Fireproof, which will give us a little bit of extra fire resistance. Revenant, which will give us additional damage if you're lucky enough to get picked up by a player in an event or in-game, as well as using the Scout Banner Second Wind buff, Life-Saving Armor, or the Mysterious Savior perk card. Now for Charisma, you can use a couple different cards for this. I will be using Alcoholic Beverages, but if you do not care for it, you can use Inspirational for additional XP, or Tenderizer if you want a little bit of burst damage. But Party Boy gives us a triple effect for our whiskeys or any of our alcoholic beverages, which means more strength, more carry weight, more damage. Now I forgot to mention that you can also use the Cola Nut perk card under Endurance, pair it with Party Boy, and use Nuka Cola Dark if that is something that you would prefer over the whiskeys. But moving on, we have Stranger Numbers, which is a must-have for any mutations that you use because it does increase the benefits of those mutations. For Intelligence, we are going to be using First Aid, which will increase the effectiveness of our Stimpaks, batteries included because this is going to be a PA build. For Agility, we have Through Hiker for the reduced weight. Luck will have Class Freak and Starch Genes, two more perk cards that are a must-have for any mutations that you use. Curator to increase the duration of our magazines and bobbleheads, and Good with Salt to prevent our food from spoiling, because as I mentioned earlier, we will be using some food buffs. Now for the legendary perk cards, we will not be using any. This will give you guys free reign of what you guys want to use, but I'll have a full min-max build if you guys want to check it out in the description. For our power armor, we're going to be using a non-legendary Excavator set. The mods will be using our calibrated shocks for the legs for additional carry weight, the motion assisted torso mod for additional strength for more damage and carry weight, and then the optimized bracers for the arms. For anyone who was wondering how to get the Excavator power armor, well, I'll show you the questline that you can start and where to start it. If you head on over to the Rusty Pick, just outside will be the first location that you can find the poster to start the questline. Now the questline is actually pretty short and easy to get through. The only hard part is actually gathering the materials to craft the PA itself. But all you need to do is go up to the sign and interact with it, and it'll start it for you. The second location, if you somehow manage to have the Garahan Mining Headquarters location unlocked but not the rest you pick, you can come on over here, which is closer to the quest location. It's actually right outside of it, and there will be a poster there that you can interact with and start the quest line that way. Now, just for the video, this is probably one of the easier PAs that you can get, and it's not necessary for the build. I like PAs that have carry weights, but there's some that are a lot tankier. And if you guys want to check out my min-max video, again, there will be a link in the description, as well as I use the Union PA for that one. And for the weapon, we're going to be using a non-legendary auto axe with no mods. This is to kind of show how strong this weapon is and the potential that it can possibly have if you decide to stick with the build and try to go for a stronger version of it. But if you don't know where to get the auto axe, there are two ways you can go about getting it. The first way is by farming stamps from expeditions. Now, it's going to be very expensive, and you can find the vendor for this at the White Springs Resort, located in the Savage Divide near the center of the map. Now, if you have this location discovered already, you can fast travel directly inside, but for the sake of the video, we're going to be starting on the outside and walking in. Now, once you spawn in, you want to head towards the right side. And I believe the requirements to unlock or to show the auto axe is you need to be level 20. And this is on a brand new level 20 character who hasn't done any of the expedition quest lines. And we're going to be heading to the vendor now. But once you head to the right, you're going to find the red ballroom. And just there on the side, you'll find Giuseppe's Curios. In that room, you'll not only find a Nuke vendor Bubbles, but Giuseppe himself, which you can there find the auto axe for 500 stamps. Now, for our new players, expeditions will yield a tremendous amount of rewards, but also a very good way to level up. But I'm going to be honest, it is quite a grind to get 500 stamps. The second way is getting it in the Atomic Shop. If you head on over to the bundles page and scroll down just a little bit, you'll be able to find the Auto Axe Starter Bundle, which is actually a really good bundle to get, because not only will you get the weapon, but you'll also get the coffee maker. The coffee maker is a really good camp item that produces canned coffee, which is an AP refresh food that can stack, which will essentially give you infinite AP for a short period of time, depending on how many coffees you take in one sitting. Now let's move on to the food buffs that we are going to be using for today. Now there's a variety of different ones that you can take, but for this video we're going to be taking a Deathclaw steak and a tasty mutant hound stew. The steak will give us strength, and the tasty mutant hound stew will give us % melee. Now, when it comes to the other versions, there are cheaper versions that you can do. There's the light version, as well as the, I guess, medium, and then of course the stews, which will have the most amount of % melee damage. Now, if you don't really care for farming for the stronger buffs, I would recommend the medium ones, not the light. And the reason why is because for example, for the light mutant hound stew, it takes 2 mutant hound meat to get 40% melee damage. But if you do the mutant hound chops, it takes 4 to give you double that % damage. The same goes for the yogi or the yaoguai ribs. A little less resources, a little bit more than the light, but more damage. Now, if you're willing to actually do farming and get the ingredients for it, I recommend the Tasty Mutant Hound Stew or the Tasty Yogi Roast, because they're a little bit easier to farm compared to the mutton meat pie. All three of those do give the same amount of % melee damage, so whichever your preference is the one I recommend you go for. Now, where do you get the Yogi Roast, the Deathclaw Wellington, Deathclaw Steak, and the Tasty Mutant Hound recipes? Now, you can go one of two ways. If you have the north entrance, you can fast travel directly into the White Springs Mall. But for the sake of the video, and for those who do not have the entrance, you can enter through the White Springs Refuge. As soon as you spawn in, you want to head down the stairs and through the doors. Now, once you spawn in, head to the right and head to Le Grand Gourmet. That is the shop that you want to head to that has all of these recipes. Now, for these recipes, they do not spawn all the time. They are not guaranteed. There is a chance for them. And if they do not show up in your vendor, just simply server hop and head back, and hopefully you'll be able to find them. Now, we'll interact with Antoine here in just a second, and you will see that there is the Deathclaw Wellington and the Tasty Yogi Roast recipe there in the vendor. They're pretty cheap, and I highly recommend getting them if you have enough caps for them. But there are those two. Let's show you guys the Tasty Mutant Hound Stew here. And now we're going to show you guys how to get the Deathclaw steaks. Now for the Deathclaw steaks, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is kill a Deathclaw and pick up the meat. And to show you guys, right here we do not have any of the Deathclaw steaks. This is a brand new character. And we're going to go ahead and loot a body that I killed earlier, grab the meat, and show you guys that it will then appear. I do believe this will work for the Yogi roasts, or the Yogi ribs, as well as the Mutant Hound chops, as well as the light variants if you pick them up from those enemies. So we're going to go ahead and grab this meat, and then check the cooking station, and under the meat category, or the all food, we'll be able to find the Deathclaw steaks right there. Now let's move on to the final section before we get started with the damage. Now here are all of our stats and effects for our perk cards for the new revamped endurance cards. As you can see, we have 57 damage resistance, 33 energy, fire, cryo, and poison resistance, 72 AP, and 44 disease resistance. And this is all thanks to our endurance stat, which if we go to our special is at 13. For the cost of 4 perk points, we're getting a pretty nice amount of additional stats that will definitely help for lower levels and be useful for the higher end game. Now for the mutations, we will be using a handful. We're going to be using Bird Bones, Carnivore, Egghead, Herd Mentality, Marsupial, Scaly Skin, Speed Demon, and Twisted Muscles. Carnivore is the key mutation though, because it will increase our benefits of all of our food buffs. Well, meat food buffs. But for those who don't know how to get it, I'll show you how. Now mutations can be obtained a couple ways. If you want to get it yourself and have access to buying the plan spot on your own, head on over to the abandoned waste dump located on the right side of the map in the mire. The Southern Belle Motel or just that elbow there will be a good indicator on where you need to go. But that's not all. You do need to head inside of the cave. Once you spawn in, be very careful because there will be 2 Deathclaws there, one roaming and one sleeping. But if you want to get straight to the questline, head inside and go to the back left side of the cave. There you'll find a crack in the wall with a body on the floor. Interact with the body to start the quest line, and there are 3 Deathclaw nests that you'll need to check to find the bypass code. Hopefully you get lucky and find the one just outside. This will give you access not only to the Enclave bunker, but also to the silos. Now the plans are very expensive, they cost 17,500 caps, but you can get the serums from players if you would like for cheaper. Just do some vendor hopping, and hopefully you'll find a player who has the mutations that you want or need. Now what you've all been waiting for, the actual damage. Now we're going to quickly go over all of our stuff real quick, just to cover everything, just in case anyone may think that I'm using, a legendary weapon or legendary gear or buffs or things like that. But I will say that I did make a mistake and I forgot that I was using my anti-armor auto axe, because in between recordings I was doing some other farming. And I will switch to the non-legendary here in just a moment. Now, quick thing about Encrypted while we go over all this. Encrypted is a very difficult event to do solo, especially if you're new to the game. And it's also one of the best events and easiest events when run in a public to get modules. Because once you finish this event, you will get 5 modules for the completion, a guaranteed legendary because of the sheep squatch, a bunch of aluminum, and other good items from the robots. This event can be started by players once per server and requires a encrypted keycard or an Assaultron recall keycard, which you can then have access to crafting when you finish the Sheep Squatch 8 My Brother questline, which you can find a poster at the train stations. But anyways, the damage. Now this event will also consume a ton of stim packs, especially if you are going to be the pylon holder, so keep that in mind. But as you can see, we are peeling away at the Sheep Squatch health with no legendary gear, as well as no buffs, taking the fire damage, and as well as the laser. I do recommend if you do try to do this solo, or even in a public server, spin like this. Go around her, because she can't trace you with her beam. She can only face you one way and turn her head left and right. Sometimes she will glitch out and the beam will go behind her, but it hasn't happened as often as it used to. So as long as you're going around in circles, keeping her busy, you'll be able to tear her down and get the completion and get those modules very easily. And just like that, Encrypted is done. Now let's go ahead and take this over to an Earle. Now, I'm going to show you guys all of my stats and such so you guys can see it, just so you guys know that there's no tomfoolery going on. And then also my perk cards, weapon, and gear. Now we'll be dishing out a little bit of damage without any buffs, and then a little bit later we're going to be putting on some of the buffs minus the magazine. But there is one thing I really need to mention if you guys are using any kind of auto melee weapon or weapon that has a pushback and you're fighting Earle. Do not push him up against something that he collides with. Anything that he collides with will cause him to basically glitch out of the arena, and he will either start floating in the ceiling, he'll maybe be peeking out of the walls, coming in and out of the ground, and flying all over the place. So always use your auto axe. Even if you're not hitting the headshots, use your pushback weapons on the opposite side of anything that he collides with. Try to keep him out in the open, otherwise you may ruin your instance's run. And unfortunately, you will be seeing that here in this video. Now for the damage, right off the rip, we're going to be taking damage for 64 on the head, which is quite nice with no buffs. Keep in mind the auto axe has insanely high DPS, so we're actually dishing out a lot of damage in a short period of time. Now there are other auto axe users, but it's going to get a little chaotic here in just a moment. So trying to push him away from the wall, we're hitting him for 28 in the back, and we managed to hit for 71 due to take one for the team. But now that we have the no buff damage in mind, let's go ahead and take a couple buffs here. We're going to be using the Deathclaw Steak. We're also going to be taking the Tasty Mutant Hound Stew, a Whiskey, and a quick little tip, if you have Liquid Courage, always take your main buff first and then Liquid Courage so you get the benefits for the Whiskey first, or Nuka-Cola Dark. Next, we're going to be using the Psycho buff, and then afterwards we're going to be using the Backwoodsman. Now as you see here, he is pushing the Earle into the wall, and just before I can hit him to get him out, he is now in the sky. This is what I mean by do not push him into something that he collides with where he has nowhere to go, because this will happen. But besides that, we're going to go ahead and check out the damage, and we're hitting for 302 for take one for the team and 188. A pretty significant boost to our damage. But one downside about this build is that auto axes burn through the durability. And if you wanted to increase the durability of your auto axe, you can always go for the Break Slower Legendary or the Stable Tools perk card under Intelligence. So for this build, you can swap out First Aid for Stable Tools. But anyways, I got lucky enough to find another team who was fighting an Earle, and this is the damage we're now doing with a Backwoodsman 6 active. The damage went up just a bit, and we're now hitting for 248 per tick, which is a little bit more without the Backwoodsman 6. Now if I use the Deathclaw Wellington instead, the damage would be just a little bit higher. But from starting things off with 66 damage all the way up to a little over 200 damage is a nice increase with a couple of buff investments. Now of course this isn't the max amount of damage you can do. If you applied a specific legendary roll, you can greatly increase that damage even further, as well as stack more strength with your power armor or regular armor stats. Some legendary rolls I would recommend is Aristocrats, Anti-Armor with Power Attack, especially if you're using buffs, if you're running a Bloody build, Bloodied, and Vampires. The more popular ones are definitely Vampires, Anti-Armor, and Bloodied, but whichever one floats your boat, go for that one. For the second star, always Power Attack, and for the third star, go for either Weapons Break Slower, 40% less damage taken while power attacking, as well as +3 strength. But now that Earle is dead, show you guys that all of our things are the same. We have our buffs active, our Backwoodsman active, same weapon, same armor, same perk cards, no legendaries. But that about covers it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found the information useful. And again, this is for beginners. I know there is a lot of information in it. I'm sorry that the video was so long, but I wanted to make sure that everything was covered, as well as hopefully answered as many questions as I possibly could within this video. But if there's still any questions that you guys might have, please leave a comment and let me know, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Now this build can handle all content in the game currently, from small enemies like super mutants to super mutant behemoths, Mirelurks to Mirelurk Queens, nuke bosses to expeditions and daily ops. If you're searching for more damage, the Bloodied variant is significantly stronger due to the Adrenal Reaction Mutation and the Nerd Rage and Radical perk cards. Now, one last thing I would like to mention is that if you guys are looking at any build guides and a lot of them are bloodied, it's very easy to convert them into full health builds. All you need to do is remove Radical, Serendipity, as well as Nerd Rage if they have any of those cards on, and do not use the Adrenal Reaction, which is a mutation that you can use that will increase your damage when your health is lower. Once those perk cards are removed, you'll have a full health build ready to go and a few perk points and perk cards to use at your own disposal. But on that, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, happy hunting, good luck, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.